Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Spirit, and this is my channel. And this is a series called Deleted Ancestral History Series. Now, this one is on the connection between the plantation owners and the enslaved during Reconstruction and emancipation of the slaves. So, okay, I'm going to do a prayer like I always do because it's a blessing over my channel. And I feel much better about it when I do it. And give God my gratitude. Okay, there you go. Well, no. Okay, there. Okay. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, not down, just as in fact you are doing. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11. Okay, now I figured that this would give you all a lot of information on what happened with the uh, emancipated slaves during Reconstruction. So, uh, God gave me this desire to do this because He knew that it would be important to everybody. So, this is what happened. Okay, here's a deep dive into the brutal realities of enslavement and exploitation in America, especially during, the Reconstruction era, following the Civil War. Because the thing is, and I know this from research, they did not prepare the enslaved for living outside of the plantation. And no way. There was no classes or anything or any information that they needed, if they needed clothing or food or anything. They still had to depend on the master of the plantation. And the thing of it is, that's what they was preparing and hoping for because they knew, now the plantation owners knew that they would still have to depend on them and they could exploit them more, even though they had to pay them, they had wanted to stretch it out. And since the emancipated slaves did not, the majority of them did not know how to read or count. So the master could say or do, well, you owe me this for this. Well, I paid you. No, see, get you on the books. They don't know what they're looking at. Okay, let me continue. And here is the connection between the enslaved, the emancipated slaves, and the plantation owner in the abuse aspect, which played what part? Physical abuse. Enslaved people were routinely whipped, shackled, branded, and mutilated. Overseers used tools like the cowskin whip to inflict pain and assert dominance. Verbal abuse. Language was weaponized to dehumanize, intimidate, and reinforce racial hierarchies. Mhm. Hangings and lynchings. These were public spectacles of terror during Reconstruction from 1865 to 1876. Over 2,000 people of color were lynched, nearly 3 times the rate of the following decades. Exploited means being used unfairly for someone else's gain, often under coercion or manipulation. It implies a power imbalance, yes, where the exploited party lacks control or autonomy. When, where, what, why, and whom. Okay, here are the aspects of when. It was primarily during slavery in the 1600s to 1865. But the abuse that happened during emancipation and the reconstruction of America was during the time from 1863 until, because the exploitation is still going on, but in a different way. But believe me, it's still happening. Uh, 1865 and Reconstruction, 1865, as I said, to 1877 and on to the present. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. All right, come on, turn it. Okay, where across the Americas, so south, but also in northern and western states. So it was all over. The exploitation was continuous as long as they knew they could get money. Money was the thing with the Europeans, and it still is. No matter how they got it, it was the main thing. Okay, what? Enslaved people were exploited, yeah, for labor. Oh, yeah. Sexual abuse and control. Yeah. Why? to maintain white supremacy, economic gain, and social dominance. Okay, let's see here. All right. Whom the people of color, especially formerly enslaved individuals, yeah, they were prey to them because they knew that they didn't have the necessary information to live on their own. So letting them go that way was intentional. They meant for what happened to happen. They still had cheap labor. Okay. Legal systems, slave codes denied rights and protected enslavers. Economic structures, labor exploitation, continued post emancipation. Yeah, that's what I said. Through sharecropping and convict leasing, which they wasn't convicts. They just was like didn't have no place to go. So they loitered. They found places somewhere in the city where they could go with the kids uh, and have a place to lay their head. It didn't matter where, as long as it was covered and out of the sun, that's where they lived. Social norms, violence, and terror were normalized to enforce racial hierarchy. Summary: enslavement was not just forced labor, it was a system of brutal exploitation reinforced by violence, fear, and the law, which wasn't really law. They were made up laws. The Reconstruction era, through promising freedom, saw a deadly backlash. It was worse then. Lynches, assaults, and systematic disenfranchisement. Exploitation persisted beyond slavery, morphing into new forms of racial control. In conclusion, the legacy of exploitation during slavery, Reconstruction, and the freedom for the slaves shaped American society in enduring ways. The violence wasn't incidental, it was foundational. Understanding this history is essential to confronting ongoing racial injustice. In my opinion, the fact that thousands were lynched during a time meant to rebuild and heal is a chilling reminder of how deeply rooted racial terror was and still is. Exploitation wasn't just economic, no. Mm-mm. Any way they can and will exploit a person of color, they would do it. Even now, the exploitation is still going on. Okay, and no one is really doing anything about it because it's hidden, but it's out there. Everybody knows. But the people that can help is the people that's doing it. Just like then. No one says anything. Exploitation wasn't just economic, it was psychological, legal. They made it legal. The people that want to exploit them, they made it legal. Even though it was not ethical or right, they didn't care. Law, it was psychological, legal, and cultural. Reckoning with this past isn't optional. It's necessary. But I put it this way. We cannot come to terms with this because the Europeans have not done or said anything that can help or remedy the feelings, the pain, the exploitation of people of color. They have not did anything, the federal government. They just put a little, like, say your whole arm is cut up. Okay, from here, from the upper part to the lower part. And say you go in and say, enter your house to get your father and say, Father, you're crying. And you say, Father, I need a bandage on my arm. And your father taking, you know, take out the alcohol or whatever, just clean it and everything, and take out the bandage box. And he finished cleaning and everything. And he said, here you go. And he put one bandage just on your hand. And the rest of your arm is just bleeding, 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 bleeding. And you look at your dad and say, think to yourself, oh my God, he didn't put anything on the rest of my arm. And he tells you, go ahead and play. Okay? That is what the federal government have done with the people of color. They just put a couple bandages on the hand and nothing on the rest of the bleeding arm. So we still are bleeding. All right. And the federal government don't care. Even though all of this that's in research and proven that it did happen and still is happening, the Europeans had cheap labor during slavery, after slavery, uh, and the building. Oh, we build it, our ancestors, people of color, with no pay. Okay, and we are owed for that. They didn't even add in that uh, uh, building of the ships, cities, you name it. Our ancestors did that. They were architects, uh, people that were experienced in agriculture. They grew the tobacco. They grew the corn. They grew the cotton from the beginning to the end. The old master was sitting on the porch, rocking back and forth, had the overseer with the whip over the ancestors, rushing them, making them scared. So, how can we heal? I'll tell you, the only way we can come to terms with this and begin healing, because all of this happened many, 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 many years. The pain, suffering, fear, trauma is imprinted not only on people that came before us, but was imprinted, and it is on our DNA, on our genes. And that was intentional from God. This happened even after slavery, and we had more ancestors. They had the imprint of the DNA from slavery. And just as I said, that we have this DNA and we can't heal until the federal government start to do things. Like, first, I feel that they should apologize and explain that yes, they do have evidence of this and this and this and this happened. Uh, make a speech and apologize for what they did. Oh gosh, not only the cotton, but banks. We and our ancestors built banks, colleges, hospitals. Oh God, Jesus. Wow. So many, 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 many. The federal government owe us so much. It will take them forever to give back even things that they stole from people of color, artwork, all these things. They need to start. And I would say start now, because time is running out. All right. And like I said before, because you're not making steps toward us or to start making amends, okay? God can call you home tonight. And then what you going to do? Because With me, I can clearly and honestly say and know I'm going to heaven. Can you say that? Okay. Good night. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon because I got to film like 3 more. Uh, and if you can, do something good for somebody, for the people of color or whatever. Buy them lunch, or the groceries or something. Start that way. And because slavery was so many years, and the plantation masters was there, then they had the descendants and more descendants because they saw it bad so much. These descendants and all of their descendants are racist. Okay. The Europeans probably say, no, 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 no. No. The racism is stamped also on your DNA, your genes, the people before you, their genes, and the people that's coming after you, it's going to be on their genes. And because you are not breaking on anything to take this racism off of your genes, it's going to be stuck there, and your descendants and their descendants are going to be racist too. You need to study the people of color, their culture, and see and try to understand what my ancestors went through and still is going through. It's there, it's stuck there. And we can't do anything until you do something. And you need to start now. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself and each other. And remember to pass it on, share, like, and subscribe. Namaste. Okay, it's only 12 good. So